What's up, Planeswalkers? It's your boy K-Dog. Got another fun video for you guys. This one looking at a sweet Simic list. Kind of the build around is Eutropia the Twice-Favored. For 1 green and blue, we get a 2/2 legendary human wizard with Constellation. Whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, and that creature gains flying until end of turn. So it kind of buffs up our creatures, gives them some evasion, and there's plenty of enchantments in Standard, especially thanks to Theros Beyond Death. So yeah, we're going to see if we can build around her and make this deck work. So starting at the 1-drop slot, we have 4 Eidolon of Philosophy for single blue. We get a 1/2 creature, so not bad. It's an enchantment creature, so that synergizes with what we're trying to do. And it does have an activated ability for 6 and a blue to sacrifice it and draw 3 cards. I don't know how often that's going to be relevant, but you never know. The game goes super long. We're in a board stall. Could give us a way to refill. Frogify is just an outstanding piece of removal. It doesn't look like much, but it's actually been really effective in my playtesting of this deck so far. For 1 and a blue, we enchant creature, and that creature loses all abilities, and is a blue frog with base power and toughness 1/1. So it doesn't work too well with anything that has counters on it, but everything else really shuts them down. Omen of the Sea is just a nice flash enchantment. For 1 and a blue, we get to scry 2 and draw cards. That's a really nice effect. It's an enchantment, so obviously that's what we want to see in our deck. And we can also fix our draws in the late game with 2 and a blue. We can sack it and scry 2. Another enchantment here is Starlit Mantle. For 1 and a blue, we can flash it in, and creature gains hexproof until end of turn. And also that creature gets +1/+1 as a permanent ability. So that's pretty sweet. It's a nice way to kind of protect our Eutropia or whatever creatures that we have out. So we just hold up 2 mana. And also we got 4 Destiny Spinners. For 1 in the green, we had a nice 2/3 enchantment creature. And creature and enchantment spells you control can't be countered. So that's basically everything in our deck is a creature or enchantment. And the sweet activated ability works really well in this list. For 3 in the green, we get to target a land that we control, and it becomes XX elemental creature with trample and haste, where X is the number of enchantments you control. So that obviously counts itself. Destiny Spinner is an enchantment creature, so that'll be at least 1, plus all the other enchantments we're running here. We'll probably, not hard to get a 4 or 5 powered land on board with trample and haste, so that's pretty sweet. Moving on here, we have a couple of Setessan Skirmishers. It's just a 2/1 for 1 and a green, so it's not great, but we're trying to take advantage of the Constellation effect, where whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, Setessan Skirmisher gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So that's a pretty decent effect, especially when we stack it with, say, Setessan Training, and now all of a sudden our Skirmisher has trample. For 1 in a green, we can enchant a creature we control, and then when this enters the battlefield, we draw a card, and the creature gets +1/+0 and trample. So this works with everything that we're trying to do here. And moving on, we got Callaphe, Beloved of the Sea. For 1 blue, we get a 0/3 legendary enchantment creature. However, the power is equal to our devotion to blue. So this can easily be, it'll at least be a 2/3 because of Callaphe has double blue in its casting cost. And then it can easily be a 4 or 5 powered creature or more. And then Setessan Training gives it trample, things like that. And it has the little bonus here of creatures and enchantments you control have spells your opponents cast that target this permanent cost 1 more to cast. So it's not really a great ability in all honesty, but it can throw off the math of our opponent if they were holding a bunch of spot removal and things like that. A couple Hydra's Growth is just another way to kind of build on the little bit of a counter synergy that we have and kind of grow our small creatures here. As for 2 and a green, we can enchant a creature, and the creature gets +1/+1 counter on it. And at the beginning of your upkeep, we get to double the number of +1 counters on it. So obviously things can get out of control with Setessan Training and Eutropia. We can just start putting a bunch of counters, doubling them up, giving our creature trample, and having a pretty powerful creature to close out the game with. Another way we can gain trample here is with Nyx Herald. For 2 and a green, we get a 2/3 enchantment creature. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target enchanted creature or enchantment creature you control gets +1/+1 and gains trample until end of turn. And since most of our creatures are enchantment creatures anyway, or the 2 that we have that are not enchantment creatures, we'll probably have an enchantment on them. Either way, this should trigger for pretty much any of our creatures. But just having a 2/3 for 3 isn't great, so that's why we're just running the 2 of. Of course, all 4 Eutropias. And topping out our curve here at the 4-drop slot, we have a couple Renatas. It's 2 green for a 0/3 legendary enchantment creature. However, her power is equal to our devotion to green, so just like Callaphe, the power should be, it'll always be 2 because of herself, and it can be 4 or 5, and then we have give it trample with Setessan Training, Nyx Herald, things like that, or flying with Eutropia, then it can get in for quite a bit of damage. And it has a nice bonus where each other creature you control enters the battlefield with additional +1/+1 counter on it. So since most of our creatures are pretty small and underpowered, and we're relying on enchantments to actually deal the damage, this is a nice way to kind of build up our creatures that much more. And obviously Hydra's growth doubles the counters, things like that. So there's some pretty sweet synergies going on. Going over the mana base, we got 7 islands, 7 forests, all 4 breeding pools, of course. Just a couple of Temple of Mysteries because we want to try to play on curve as much as possible. And 3 Fabled Passage for the extra fixing. Going to our sideboard, it's kind of a work in progress, but this is kind of where we're at so far. Got a couple Aether Gust to help us deal with the powerful red and green spells. A couple of Cerulean Drakes as a 1/1 flyer with protection from red against the mono red decks. Return to Nature for 1 and a green. That's just a nice artifact and enchantment hate. Mystical Dispute as a 2 of. Since I figured we're playing Simic, the matchmaker will probably pit us against other blue and Simic based decks. So this kind of gives us a way to kind of combat those decks. As for 2 and a blue, we get to counter target spell unless the controller pays 3, and it costs 2 less to cast if targets a blue spell. So if the opponent is playing Simic or blue, then we just pay a single blue to counter that spell in most situations. The first Iroan games is another enchantment. It's a Saga for 2 and green. We get a 1/1 human soldier creature token. And then the next phase, we get that sweet counter synergy, putting 3 +1/+1 counters on a creature we control. And the third saga, if we control a creature power 4 or greater, we get to draw 2 cards. So as long as that creature doesn't die, or we have another creature out that's got a couple counters on it, then we'll get from Eutropia or something like that. Then we'll get the card draw there. And then the fourth saga is we get to create a gold token. So if we are drawing cards, we'll have the mana the following turn to play out anything we need. Just a 1 of Ashiok's Erasure for 2 blue. It's a flash enchantment. When Ashiok's Erasure enters the battlefield, exile target spell, and your opponent can't cast spells with the same name as the exiled card. So it's a little bit like an Unmoored Ego or something like that, but in kind of like counterspell form, or Ixalan's Binding, things like that. So being able to play it at flash speed, we get to target any spell, so it's not even permanence. It could be like a negate or anything like a counterspell, instant or sorcery, it doesn't matter, just exile target spell. So that's pretty interesting. Format is a little clunky for what we're trying to do, but it is an enchantment, so it synergizes with our deck. And mostly I've just been kind of looking for an excuse to play it, so we'll just bring it in as a 1 of. A couple Arasta of the Endless Web for 2 green. We get an enchantment creature, 3/5 reach. And whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, we'll get 1/2 spider creature tokens. So that's pretty sweet against like counter spells and spot removal. And also for the blue matchups, a couple Shifting Ceratops for 2 green. We get a 5/4 dino that can't be countered and protection from blue. So we can't target it with some of our spells like Eutropia because she's blue. We won't be able to target it, but it still is a pretty fine creature on its own. And Setessan Training, Hydra's growth, things like that still work just fine with it. And it does count towards devotion as well with the double green. So that's pretty sweet. And then we can pay green to give it reach, trample, or haste until end of turn. Alright, that's the list. And let's jump into some best of 3. And see how we do today. Alright. Beloved Eutropia and Arena Standard best of 3. I hope you guys are having a wonderful day or wherever you're at. It's definitely nice being able to put the Constellation Renata to use after getting it in the event this weekend. Definitely loving the artwork on some of those cards. Alright, here we are up against Ben WD9 with a sweet Liliana avatar. Alright, we get to go first. Got a couple Eutropias. It's kind of an awkward hand. I don't want to mulligan it though. We do need a third land or like a 2-drop. I think we'll try it though. Obviously, if our opponent gets off to a really fast start, then probably sucks for us, but we'll see. We are at least on the play. So just looking for more lands and or 2-drops. Black, okay. Footlight food. So Setessan Training is decent, but we just kind of need our lands. And of course, our opponent with the super aggressive start. So this match could be over quickly. Okay, well, we found our third land, but it's a temple. We need all the creatures we can get, just a chump block. So I don't think I can say no to that. That's not really ideal. Frogify is probably more of what we're looking for here. And the Dreadhorde Butcher continues to grow. I guess we just run out Eutropia and hope for the best. This Dreadhorde Butcher is just getting bigger and bigger. We have to find a Frogify to deal with that. That's pretty much a game right there. Alright, so we know what our opponent is up to. We're just super far behind. Alright, at least it was over quickly. Okay, so the Drake. Omen of the Sea is nice, but it's a little bit slow. The Drake can at least chump block the Butcher. Hydra's growth isn't really great. I'm going to go a little bigger with Arasta. They're in Rakdos, so I don't think we need Return Nature. Ashiok's too slow. So Aether Gust can kind of deal with some of their stuff as well. Question is, what do you want to shave off? I think Frogifys work really well against them. We'll just get rid of all the Omens of the Sea. That might just be a little awkward here. Iroan games is tempting, but probably not quite what we need in this matchup. If we just need to go a little bit bigger, then that would be a thing, but since their deck can be pretty fast, as we just saw, we need to try to just be a little more efficient. Much better hand, though not perfect. So we got the Frogify, we got the Cerulean Drake that can kind of jump block their Rakdos spells. Get the Breeding Pool down tapped. We got the Forest. Okay, a slower start from our opponent this time. Definitely want to lean on the Drake first. So holding up a shock. Protection Friend, you can shock my face or you can save it. Probably just put out the Destiny Spinner and Breeding Pool next turn. And the Drake can chump block their Butcher all day, so we're not worried about that. Just want to continue building our board state here. Our opponent playing it nice and slow. Need to be a little cautious. I don't think getting for 1 point of damage is super important just yet. Next one will probably just Callaphe, Beloved of the Sea. Or depending on what they play, want a Frogify, and in which case we'll probably Setessan Training as well. Shock face, sure. If that's all you're going to do. Skewer on the Destiny Spinner. Opponent's pretty light on answers. Or threats, I should say. They have answers. So yeah, let's just get in with the Drake. We do have a 3 toughness blocker, so if they do have a Draper Butcher or something like that, we can at least block it for a turn. That does put us in shock range though. Going with the Bedevil, sure. Another Drake. For Setessan Training just for the card draw. Okay, so we got a couple Frogifys this game. Or of course our opponent doesn't have any creatures to Frogify. Okay, just playing the Blade Juggler for 5. Do I care about this 3/2? Obviously we have to consider Spectacle. Don't love it, but I think we have another Frogify, so I think we'll just do it. And that way we can kind of slow down their attacks. Okay, so that was a good thing right there. We would have lost both Frogifys. Not really sure how good that really is against us though. Carnival Carnage. Could just be like a Rakdos starter deck. Skewer the critics just to get another 1 point of damage across. Draw a land. It's not ideal, but these Drakes are winning the race for us so far. Well, they don't have any black-based removal, then we should be okay. Though it seems like it's all Bedevils and Shocks and Skewers. And we'll keep playing out these Setessan Trainings to increase our power and draw. Alright. So they are staring down lethal next turn. That's the way to deal with these Drakes. Or they can somehow deal 11 points of damage. Nope. Eater of Horrors. That's the game. Sure. It's a nice little buff. Alright, so that went much better. So our opponent didn't really do much the first couple turns. It worked out to our advantage. I'm not too worried about the enchantment. I think this still seems pretty fine. Just drawing better would help. That first game was pretty rough. And even though we didn't draw well in that last game, we still had enough. Especially since they weren't drawing particularly well themselves. Get a turn to Drake again. That's pretty sweet. The Frogify and Starlit Mantle for any other creatures that we draw. By the way, going for the shock. You got it. I'll just Nyx Herald next turn. Hydra back. It's a little annoying. Nyx Herald, then they probably just have like a Bedevil or something. And they probably won't have a... They might not have mana open to activate a Acrobat. I'm not blocking. I think we just want a Renata here. Just trying to shock us to get the Blade Juggler effect. So that works for me, but they don't want to... We could hold the Drake back to block the Acrobat. Or we could just get in for 4. We need to play a little cautious. So if we can tap with this, then the Starlit Mantle and Frogify will definitely put in some work for us, but we'll see. Showing a ton of removal so far. Get the point. Nice efficient 5-mana removal spell. Scry to the bottom. Attacking with the Blade Juggler, sure, we'll take it. I'm okay with this. Do need to put some counter pressure on them. So our Nyx Herald has trample, so if they want to jump block it, that's fine. And if they have removal for the Herald, we have the Starlit Mantle to protect it. 4 damage, it's not really ideal, but they are winning the race so far. We'll pause there, so they might have more removal. They're at 10, but we're taking at least 4 more here. And there's Eutropia, beautiful. We just pass here. So we put a counter. Opponent says go, 1 card in hand. We do have the Starlit Mantle. Okay, so we can deal 3, 4, 5, 6. It's not enough. We just attack in with a Nyx Herald. We need to just try to set up lethal without overexposing ourselves. We have the Starlit Mantle. I think. Block here, block here. Alright. That worked out pretty well. Just a land in hand. Nyx Herald, that should seal the deal. Alright. That was a pretty close matchup against the Rakdos removal heavy deck. But yeah, the Starlit Mantle came in clutch against all their spot removal.
I look forward to seeing your mistakes.
Okay, whatever, dope. Yeah, so yeah. Eutropia putting in some work right there. Nice, fun little Simic deck if you guys are looking for something a little bit different. And I've seen some other people try to play it. I haven't seen anybody showcase it on stream or YouTube or anything like that. But yeah, hope you guys give it a try. And look forward to seeing the next one. Take care.